What's up guys, I'm Alan with Edge Autosport and we've got Lucy back on the dyno today. And yeah, so this is Lonnie's car. I talked about it before. This time it's clean, you may not recognize it. Thank you, Lonnie. And I'm pretty excited about why it's back. You may remember the BWS video that I did a little while ago, that's Big Wheel Stalker. Lonnie was hoping to get a little bit more out of that turbo, and it didn't quite live up to the expectations that were set for it. So he has decided to upgrade to a GTX2860. So I decided to do a feature on that turbo because I have not actually had a GTX2860 on my dyno yet. I've tuned a couple of them out in the world via eTune, but I have not had one on the dyno. And actually, since Lonnie got his turbo and we scheduled the dyno, I've had like 4 other 2860s pop out of the woodworks from somewhere. I don't know. But anyways, this will be the first one that I've had on my dyno, so I'm really excited to see what it's gonna do, and I'm really excited to show you guys what it's gonna do. So follow along with me today as I tune this car. All right guys, you are joining me in the car and you are gonna kind of go along with me as I tune this. And I'm just gonna kind of tell you what I'm doing, I guess. So I haven't really done anything this detailed yet. I mean, I'm not gonna get into crazy details or anything, but I am gonna show you what I'm doing and I'm gonna take you through the process. So what we just did was a baseline hit. I kind of cut it short at about 4,700 RPMs when I lifted. I just wanted to see where the boost was on the base map, and it's running what it's supposed to for spring pressure, which is about 12.8 peak, 13 psi peak, and it tapers a little bit. So the next step will be to bring in the boost. So I already have my map set up with wastegate duty cycle table populated and everything, and for my base map I send out basically another table that's zeroed out so that it causes wastegate to go to 0. So now I'm just going to turn that to 1 and put some wastegate in it, and we're gonna see what kind of boost we can hit. So pull number 2 down, and we have boost now, and actually it's a pretty nice curve. It's reminiscent actually of the BWS in that we have a pretty high peak and it's tapering off some, but that's hitting 22 psi as the peak, and it's tapering off to about 18 up top. And it did 344 foot-pounds of torque and 300 wheel horsepower, so that's fairly good, but we definitely want to get some more boost in it and see what it does. And I also want to get it to run higher boost up top rather than taper like it is. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna adjust wastegate duty cycle a bit more, and we're gonna see if we can't get it to hit our boost targets, which right now 36.5 absolute is the current target. Well, that's gonna be 24.3. I don't think I quite want to run 24 pounds on this setup. We might see what 24 pounds does. I don't think I'll leave it on there for this turbo. I'm really looking more for like 22 to 23 psi. So I'm gonna adjust my target a little bit, and I'm also going to adjust the wastegate duty cycle so that we can get a little bit more boost out of this thing. Okay, now we're cooking. So that did 327 wheel horsepower, still 344 foot-pounds of torque. I didn't really increase the duty cycle down low because we're already decently close to the target in the spool up region, and I just really wanted it to hold more boost and hold it flat. So we definitely got more boost on that one, I can tell by the fact that we hit 327 horsepower. So that's at 20 psi, so plus 2 psi, and that gave us almost 30 horsepower. So it's really liking that boost. We're still hitting 22 psi at the peak. And for those of you that keep track of the posts that I make on Facebook from time to time about spool times for various turbos, this one is hitting 20 psi at 3,200 RPM. Keep in mind, the ones I post most of the time are sea level cars. This is high altitude, so it's gonna be couple hundred RPM slower. I would imagine at sea level, we would probably be seeing 20 PSI by 3,000 RPM on this same setup in 4th gear, maybe even faster, I don't know. But this is a quick spooling turbo. Our peak torque is before 3,500 RPMs, which is awesome. Based on what I know from Lonnie and what he wants with this car, it's gonna be just what he wants, because he wants it to spool fast, but he also wants to make more power. So boost is a little bit oscillating, and so this is where like a compensation's coming into play. I can tell we've got a little bit of a wave going on in my boost curve. I think I need to tighten up that compensation just a little bit so it's not oscillating so much. And then I want more duty cycles. So we're at our target is 36 and we're hitting about 33, and it's still tapering off a bit up top. So I do need more duty cycle. So yeah, so let's clean up that compensation a little bit, get rid of that oscillation in the boost curve, and see if we can't get a little more boost out of this thing on this next revision. Okay, so we really liked that one. Picked up about 10 foot-pounds of torque and bumped up to 33. We didn't gain as much horsepower, so it didn't get as much horsepower on top. Yeah, so boost came up a little bit in the mid-range. We did spike just a little bit higher boost that time, but the oscillation is a little bit less. It's still there, just I'm gonna have to tweak that just a little bit more, I think. But yeah, so we're tapering off to 21.2 PSI up top. In the mid-range, we're holding right about 21.9, so we'll call it 22. There's a tiny dip. You can kind of see it in the graph just after 4,000 RPMs. There's just a little bit of a dip right there, so I do want to fill that in. I haven't touched anything with spark advance yet. I will be getting to that here once I get boost where I want it. Fuel is looking really good though. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some room for more power when it comes to timing, but I'm pretty happy with this turbo so far at 333 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque. So it's moving right along. So let's go ahead and tweak that compensation for the boost error a little bit and see if we can't get a little bit more boost in that mid-range there, and maybe hold a little bit more up top too. Right now we're at about 50% duty cycle, so we still got plenty of room to play with. Another pull. Oh yeah, that boost curve is looking real good now. No more oscillation. It's nice and smooth. It's still tapering off up top. We're at 55% up top, but it's definitely smoothed out, and that's really what I was looking to see. I'm really happy with where the boost is right now. I want to push it a little bit further just to see what it does, see how the car likes it. But it's at 22.6. We're almost touching 23 in a couple places, but I would say average it's about 22.5 with a little bit of a taper up top down to 21.5. I don't know that it's going to want to run much more boost up top. It does seem to be not liking adding the boost up there. At least it's not responding to duty cycle up there that much. But yeah, it definitely filled in the curve a little bit more. You can see in the graph, we did pick up a lot of torque. We're at 359 foot-pounds of torque now, which is pretty good considering I have not touched the spark advance yet. I've probably got at least 2 degrees of spark advance to put in it, and I mean that we should see some gain. So I'm definitely hoping for over 340 horsepower on 91 octane with this turbo, which I think is ideal because where this turbo falls in, and I gotta be honest, I'm really liking it. I get asked all the time about turbos, guys that want it to spool fast but are afraid of hybrids because of the reliability issue and stuff. And then the 2867, despite how fast it spools a little bit too slowly for them. Like for instance, Lonnie, that's kind of how he feels. And then with this turbo here, like these guys aren't looking to go for big power. They're not doing aux fuel and that kind of thing. And I think that's where this turbo is going to shine, is stock fuel system only. It's going to fall into that hybrid turbo market, but without the reliability issue. So it does cost a little bit more too than the hybrid turbo, but I don't think you're gonna have as much of the reliability issues. It's also not gonna have as much back pressure. That won't be as big of a problem on this turbo. And we're holding a nice steady boost curve with just a slight taper up top. And I think this is a really good looking curve. So at this point, this is where I'd probably be like, all right, we're getting really close to where I wanna be for 91 octane and boost, but I am gonna go ahead and try to push it a little bit further and just see how the car reacts and see what it likes. So let's get some more boost out of this thing and do another pull.
Later, in the void.
Uh-oh, guys, we have a problem. One more PSI, that's what we wanted, and well, that's what we got. I got 23, almost 23 and a half PSI, but at about 4,000 RPMs, I heard the psh that nobody likes to hear when you're still wide open throttle, and that's the sound of a charge pipe blowing off. Unfortunately, somebody who will not be named wasn't filming during that, so you're not going to get to see the pull that was done on. But yeah, we bumped boost. We got 23 pounds of boost. We were cruising at 362 foot-pounds of torque, and then psh, now I gotta pull the car off the dyno, and we're gonna get under it and see if we can't figure out which pipe blew off and see if we can get it reconnected, and then go from there. Try to get this car finished today.
Talking crap about me on the channel for not filming.
What?
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 Huh?
Not even way there.
At least it sounds good.
It's all the whooshy noises from not having a charge pipe connected. Come on. That's gonna be a reoccurring problem, I bet. The charge pipe on the turbo, on the compressor outlet's where it popped off, so I don't know if we're gonna be able to get that to stay on the boost levels we're trying to run, but I guess I will do my darndest to get that tight and get it to stay. A little oil drip right there. Let's see, it's coming from there. Oh yeah, it's coming out of that little oil cooler. Looks like it might be coming from the catch can. Might be time to check that can and make sure it's not full. All right, well, let's get this charge pipe on, see if we can't get it tight. Normally you have to upgrade the charge pipes anyways, or at least one of them to do big turbo. Like you'll do the cold side charge pipe that has the blow off valve mount on, like the Exhale kit from CPE or the JBR kit. But this one, he's got it in a pipe over here. He's got his blow off valve mounted, and so he didn't have to upgrade his charge pipes, which, I mean, it's gonna save a little bit of money and they work, but in the long run, what happens is you end up taking your car apart and having to fix the charge pipes. We're gonna get this on and get it tight and then hopefully go from there. Another reason why you should get new charge pipes is this right here. Look at this. This is the how soft the factory pipe is, and this is of course a higher mileage vehicle, so it's kind of old and brittle anyways, but these are just super soft, so they expand and you don't get that crisp boost that you get from like metal pipes or just hardened pipes. And then you also have this little thing right here in the stock charge pipe, which is basically a turbo muffler. It's like a resonator that's supposed to cut down some of that turbo noise. You get some turbulent flow through that too, which under pressure, it's not gonna be all that big of a deal once everything pressurizes, but still, upgrading the charge pipes is definitely recommended when you go big turbo. Anyways, let's see if we can't get this thing back on and see if we can't get it back on the dyno and finish this tune-up. So we got the charge pipe back on the turbo, tightened it down as best I could, and we're gonna hope that it holds, because we should be seeing about 23 and a half pounds of boost on this next pull. And if it does, I think I'm probably gonna leave it right there, just because I don't wanna pull another charge or have to pull it back on the lift and fix the charge pipe. And I do think that if we try to run too much boost on this setup with the stock charge pipes, it's gonna be a reoccurring issue. So maybe once he gets the get some aftermarket charge pipes on it, then we might come back and see if we can't get a little more boost out of it, but there's no reason to push our luck, if you will. We gotta get coolant temps back up, so we're gonna have to drive it for just a second before we can do a pull, but it's okay. Okay, fingers crossed, no psh during the pull. I gotta let it drive for just a second so you can cut the part out where I think it just needed to warm up a bit more. The second pull, without making any changes, we're at 337.6 horsepower and 360 foot-pounds of torque, and I'm just thrilled with that for where we're at right now. I want to see if it'll take any more spark advance. I'd say about maybe 2 degrees low of where I would normally put spark advance on one of these, so we should see some more gains from that if the car is happy and will take it. We are running 91 octane right now, so I can't be for sure that it'll like that, but I don't know, we'll see. We'll see if it does. So I just put in 2 degrees of spark advance, and we're gonna see what that does. I'll go ahead and flash that, and we're gonna do another pull. Like that. So that was 2 more degrees of spark advance, and we picked up about 10 horsepower, 10 foot-pounds of torque everywhere. So they like that, and I didn't see any corrections either, so that's good. The car picked up, it looks like we got about 10 foot-pounds of torque, a little more than 10 everywhere, which is about what I would expect for 2 degrees of timing. Not a single ignition correction was to be had, at least in the downward direction. So yeah, I think I'm going to add another degree, but I think I'm only going to add it because I like where the torque is at right there at 3,500 RPMs. We're sitting at 369 foot-pounds of torque. I really like where that's at, so I don't want to put timing right there. I think I want to add about 1 degree from 4,000 up, and that should flatten out the torque curve a little bit, and that'll bring us up a little bit more in terms of horsepower on the top end, and we'll see how it likes it. It might not like it, but we won't know until we try. Hopefully you guys can hear me over the fans, but yeah, so that was 1 more degree, and we're at 355 horsepower, 374 foot-pounds of torque. We did get a couple of little baby corrections though. I got about half a degree and then a full degree of correction just on cylinder number 1 only. It means we're riding that line right now, so I'm probably gonna pull that degree back out. But it made 355 horsepower, 374 foot-pounds of torque on 91 octane. I am very happy with that. This turbo, it's a GTX2860. It's spooling super fast. I know Lonnie's gonna be thrilled to death with this thing because I think his goal, I think he was gonna just be happy if we hit 350, and we just hit 355, and we still gotta put ethanol in. So I can tell you right now, we do have room in the fuel system for ethanol. We're not quite maxed out yet, even at the boost that we're running. And I think what's gonna end up happening is I'm gonna just keep this boost curve for the ethanol slot, and I'm going to just run more aggressive spark, and we should see another probably 20 horsepower out of this thing. I don't know, I guess we'll find out. I'll add it, and you guys can follow along with me, and we'll see what it'll make. But yeah, I think I am gonna pull out a degree just to be safe for the street. I know Lonnie's not the type of person that likes to be risky, so we're just gonna pull that out and keep things nice and comfortable for him. So if you've been following along with this video, you may suddenly find yourself wondering, where did the Focus ST go? Well, it went somewhere into the ether of lost footage, and we lost all of the footage for the rest of the dyno tune for that Focus ST. So for that, I blame Charles completely, and I apologize on his behalf.
I'm sorry, guys.
If anyone's looking for a job as a videographer or whatever, I might know someone.
You know what? I quit.
I do want to finish this video. I want to show you guys how it turned out, and I want to show you guys some comparisons as well, because we shot all that and now it's gone. Oh well, gotta move on. So from my armchair, we will finish this video. The first graph that I want to bring to your attention before we get to the E30 tune, I want to show you guys how this turbo stacks up to a hybrid turbo. I think this was a Puma Speed turbo that I tuned a while back, and it was running about 22 and a half pounds of boost. So not quite as much boost, but pretty close to that. And as you can see here, the GTX2860 spools almost the same as this hybrid turbo. Like, we have, like, right here at 3,000 RPMs, we have this little bit of a bump where the hybrid's coming on a little bit faster, but the GTX2860 is so close, it's pretty much negligible. And then with pretty similar boost levels, we are way overachieving what the hybrid turbo can achieve. And part of this is because the hybrid turbo is going to be choked down a lot by the turbine size and the turbine housing, whereas this GTX 2860 has a lot more room and it's a lot more efficient of a turbo. And that's why we're able to make so much more power on 91 octane. So as you can see, on the hybrid, we ended up at 311 horsepower. On this GTX 2860, we're at 355. That is a massive difference. Yes, it is a more expensive turbo, but its spooling makes no difference, the same as the hybrid, making a ton more horsepower and doing it a lot more effortlessly. That's why I really like this turbo. Now, to show you another example, this car was tuned previously with the BWS turbo, as you guys may remember if you've watched some of our other videos. In this graph, you can see at 3,000 RPM, we have a somewhat significant amount of spool difference here. We were starting the pulls a little bit sooner on the BWS turbo. That will account for that difference a little bit, but as you can see in the graph, the BWS made 387 foot-pounds of torque, whereas the 2860 makes 374 foot-pounds of torque, and it's about, according to the data logs, it was 400 RPMs is the difference in spool time on these two turbos, and that was with starting the pulls a little bit sooner on the BWS. As you see on the top end of the graph, where we're at 355 horsepower, and we only were able to get 312 out of the BWS before we started running into some issues. The top end is just way better on this turbo. Obviously, it's a big turbo. It's gonna, like, there's no question. But yeah, and also this is comparing to the E30, the final E30 map for the BWS. We're still on 91 for this turbo, so this is still 91 octane. I'm very impressed with how well this turbo spools and how much power it's making on 91 octane. This setup is what I would call a very happy setup. Now, moving into E30, after getting this thing blended to ethanol, did a few baselines, made sure it was all well and blended, which I highly recommend you do. You make sure that you have driven on your map a little bit before you switch over to your E30 tune. That way you're not running your E30 map slot with 91 still in the fuel lines. Anyways, we did all that, added some timing. So timing is really the biggest difference between the E30 and the 91. Let me just pull up the data log so I can tell you what we got here. Yeah, so basically I just started with a couple of degrees difference. Boost pressure, largely the same. Let me double check another one here. Yeah, I don't think, oh, that's right, I remember now. We never actually changed boost on this car because of the charge pipes. I didn't want to risk blowing another charge pipe. We probably could have ran just a little bit more boost on this setup, but the car was really happy with where it was at, so I didn't. So all I did on the next few pulls is really just change spark advance and get spark advance up. And on ethanol, you can really take advantage of running aggressive spark advance because it's not gonna knock. We went from 355 wheel horsepower to 366 wheel horsepower on the first ethanol revision. We went up to 380 foot-pounds of torque. Then we bumped to 380 wheel horsepower, 389 foot-pounds of torque. So that's where we kind of started finding where the car wants to be. Whereas you're advancing your timing, and when you're on E30, you're rarely gonna see knock on E30 unless you have some like poor ethanol quality or something like that. What happens is you can advance timing too far. If you go too far, you end up losing power. You end up, what happens when you go too far is, as the piston's coming up, you're igniting the combustion event with the spark plug. You're igniting it before the piston reaches top dead center, and you're hitting peak cylinder pressure before the piston reaches top dead center. So your actual combustion is working against the piston coming up, and when that happens, that's when you're going to melt pistons. It's when you're going to send rods out the block. That's really bad. So it's really good thing, like this is where like having a dyno and being able to dial this stuff in and know where the cars like to be comes in really handy, because I can sit here and I could say, all right, we added timing, we didn't get any knock, but we also didn't get any power. So we know we are reaching the limits of where this car wants to be. And that's where we're at here. We're at 391 foot-pounds of torque, 380.5 horsepower. So adding more timing here, it did not pick up more power. It gained a little bit more torque, but it did not pick up more power. And so I know from that we don't need more timing, that we're hitting what would be considered MBT or max best torque or max brake torque or whatever you want to call it. With the before and after, going from the first E30 revision to the final E30 revision, we picked up about 20, or I guess about a little less than 20 wheel horsepower and about 10 foot-pounds of torque, it looks like. We were able to get that dialed in. And here we have the final numbers for both fuels. You can see here in this comparison, we picked up about 25 foot-pounds of torque everywhere, 25 horsepower, and that was without changing the boost at all. That was just 100% like modifying the spark advance. So up here at this elevation, we do have a little bit more headroom in the fuel system, thinner atmosphere and all that, but this turbo is going to be a really good turbo for maxing out the stock fuel system and just making the most of your spool. I've said the same things about the G25 550s. I do really like that turbo, but it only comes in external wastegate, and it's gonna be great for when you decide to go bigger later. But for a quiet, normal person turbo, this one's gonna be hard to beat, especially like for people who have no intention of upgrading the fuel system. This one's gonna be hard to beat. It's gonna be a really good contender, I think, because it just allows you to maximize the stock fuel system, the stock block, and just get the most out of that without going any further. I have here the comparison for the E30 maps for the hybrid and for this car. So the hybrid turbo that I mentioned earlier, I tuned that one on E30 as well, and here's the comparison for that. We ended up at 348 horsepower on the hybrid, and we're at 380.5 on the 2860. 391 foot-pounds of torque to the 372 foot-pounds of torque on the hybrid. So yeah, this turbo is just, it's really singing. It's flowing a lot more air. It's doing it a lot more efficiently. It actually made pretty much the same torque on 91 octane and a little bit more horsepower on 91 octane than the hybrid made on the ethanol blend, if that tells you anything. I guess to restate my thoughts on this turbo, I think it might be my new favorite stock fuel system turbo, because I get a lot of people asking me about the hybrids, and I've tuned a lot of hybrids, and I like how fast they spool, but with the hybrids, I always seem to run into problems anytime we try to run boost up around 24 plus PSI. With this turbo, it seems perfectly happy. It's not pushing anything too hard. We're not running high temps. It's not struggling. Like, it's just easy breezy.
Beautiful cover girl.
That is where you get reliability from, and that's what I really like about this setup. It does cost more. It costs the same as a GTX2867. So yes, for the same amount of money, you could get more power on the 2867 if you had the fuel system to do it. Not everybody wants to upgrade their fuel system, so if that describes you, stock fuel system, never intend to upgrade, and you don't want external wastegate, this is gonna be the turbo for you, I think. This is a really great option. Like always, you can find this turbo on our website. If you want me to tune your car, you can find our e-tunes on the website, or if you're local, you can bring it, set it right here on this dyno, and I will sit right here and tune it for you. I really enjoy tuning the Focus STs. It's one of my favorite cars to tune. So much so that we bought another one, and we have one that's gonna be getting its second built motor before too long. The Ford platform, it's a really great platform, and we enjoy working with it, and that's why we've focused a lot of our effort into showing you guys some of the cool stuff about the car, what we can do with the car, and I hope you guys have been enjoying these videos. And if there's any other turbos you'd like to see me do videos on, be sure and comment and let us know. Just so you guys know, if you do order a tune from us, you can usually expect a base map within 24 business hours. I'm usually able to do at least 2 revisions per day per customer, depending on the current dyno workload and the e-tune workload. My job is to sit here and tune cars, and I love what I do. I love tuning the Fords. I go home at night and I dream about tuning EcoBoost. That's a little cheesy, isn't it? We have more cars that we want to play with in the future, so I really hope you guys enjoy this channel. I'll stop rambling now. Be sure and subscribe, be sure and hit that like button, and we'll catch you next time.